This is Fertile, a podcast by Art to Healing. Fertile is your journey back to the rhythm of your cycle, the wisdom of your hormones, and the sacred biology that shapes you. This is the space that we explore natural medicine, real root cause healing, dispel myths, and have authentic, raw, and honest conversations. I'm your host, Em Marigold, and while I've worked in wellness for over a decade, I've also navigated my own health challenges, including PCOS and chronic acne. This podcast serves the radical woman who knows deep within her bones there must be another way, for those ready to challenge the conventional and unlock their exceptional fertility. Hello and welcome back to another episode. So today I would love to talk through with you what actually is a normal period. So this is a question that I get asked all the time, and I'm not surprised because it feels like there's so much information. Sometimes we've got like an overwhelming access to information, but that then makes us feel overwhelmed, and it's like, who to trust? What's actually correct? We have access to all this information at our fingertips, but it feels really, what's the correct information here? So I want to just really smooth things over for you today, because the questions I get are, what should my period blood look like? What color should it be? How long should I be bleeding for? How many days? How much pain is normal? What kind of pain is normal? How long should my cycle be? And there are just, as women, we're just not taught this. And in a kind of dream world of mine, I wish that as women, we'd go through something called the red tent, that every single woman, when they come of age, when they become a woman and they have their first bleed, their first what we call menstruation, that they would go through this red tent. And it's kind of like an ideology, but I do believe that it's something that we can definitely start to integrate into our society if we so wish. And I believe that this has been going on for many moons before us, and it is an ancient tradition in many indigenous cultures. So whether this red tent is actually a physical red tent that we as women would walk into and gather and learn about everything we're about to experience with our menstruation, or whether it can just be the sort of the terminology, the red tent, and you go into a study group or something. I love the idea of like a silk red tent that you gather in with candles and linen, and it's this just beautiful space to get excited to and gather and just share stories and educate. So I guess today, step into my red tent whilst I explore and share with you exactly what is a normal period. And I say that in quotations because it does differ slightly to every woman, but I will tell you exactly why. We'll kind of weave it with the Ayurvedic doshas as well. So I hope today that you will leave with a lot more clarity around what your period is. So let's just start. Let's go straight in. So first things first, if you are on any hormonal birth control or like the Mirena coil or the implant or the contraceptive pill, you're not going to have a period. So you might have a bleed, what we call a withdrawal bleed, but it won't be a true period. So especially with the pill, often it depends on which pill, but often you would take a break from the pill and then your bleed would start, and that is to do with where declining hormones will then start your uterus shedding. But it's not a true period, it's not your true cycle. So that's first thing to say, that you will not have a cycle. And having a cycle is extremely important in my opinion, because this is how we ovulate. This is how we create life. And obviously most of us go on the pill or the Mirena coil or things like that because we're trying to avoid a pregnancy. But a lot of our cycle isn't just about creating life, which I feel like is a big piece of the puzzle that is missed out. And I didn't learn this until I was in my late 20s, actually. And I feel like that's actually quite normal for most women now. And our cycle gives us so much more than that. I won't dive into that too much in depth in this one. I will talk about that, the infradian rhythm, in another episode. So why do we bleed, first of all? So for most women I speak to, actually, it's not a surprise that They don't really know what's actually happening in their body and where the blood's coming from. And so what it actually is your endometrial lining. So that's your womb. And it sits just above your vulva. You'll find that kind of space around your hips, just below your... Actually, if you're sitting now, you can place both your hands on your hip bones, if you can feel them at the front of your body, your hip bones, and you just travel inwards. And that is really a good placement. It's just below your belly button, above your pelvic bone in the center. And your womb is pretty small, actually. It's only the size of a small pear. And it does increase in size during menstruation because it's going to swell up a little bit. But essentially what is happening is there's a lining inside your womb, and that begins to shed every single month if you are not on any hormonal birth control. And that is because of your entire cycle. So your period is only like a tiny percentage of your entire cycle. And that comes from whether you've ovulated or not. And then progesterone is a hormone that starts to decline, and that creates your period. Essentially, when you haven't had a fertilized egg, you haven't had a pregnancy, your body will then shed that lining and start the whole cycle again. It's a very complex, beautiful cycle. And the way that your menstrual blood will leave your womb and travel down the vagina and out of your vagina. And it's not just an organ, it's a muscle. It's made of smooth muscle, and it will gently contract. Now, depending on what's going on with your period, the blood, the state of your health, the contractions will be very different for everyone. So that's why some women have absolutely zero pain during their period, and others can have absolutely excruciating, debilitating pain. I'm also going to talk through with you today why that occurs and what you can start to do about it. So, as we're already here, let's talk about period pain and your period blood. Now, there's several elements to this, but we'll first start with period blood and stagnation. I want to help you to understand this first element. So, the lighter your period is, so it depends on the consistency. So if, for example, you're someone currently suffering with something like PCOS, or now called PMOS, and you've got very light periods, but they're quite stagnant, maybe the blood is quite brown, and you're experiencing some pain. Now, if the blood is stagnant, and it's a very intelligent system. The body wants the blood to come out, right? It wants it to flow. It wants it to leave. It doesn't want it sitting in there. So if the blood is stagnant, there is going to be pain because it can't leave. So it's not going to be the same as, but it can be levels of pain similar to childbirth, right? If you imagine your body is trying to release something, whether it's blood, a baby, the contractions start to increase to aid in the release. Okay, so with the blood, if it starts to be more clotted or coagulated and it's thick and the body is struggling, it's going to actually help you. So this is the first step in understanding that when our body's not against us and it's actually trying to help us. Now, of course, you're not going to probably feel very loving towards your body when you're going through these levels of pain. But I do believe that's one of the first stages of healing, in having that understanding and appreciation for what your body is actually trying to do for you. I know you're probably thinking, oh yeah, Emma, I'm in a lot of pain. I don't really care. I don't want to love my body right now. But I know that it can help. So you might have light periods, okay, and it's stagnant and it's trying to come out. We're aiming to almost make that blood slightly thinner. We want it bright red. We want it flowing. We want your period essentially to just come out of you without the body having to really do anything. We don't really need contractions. We have gravity. It's going to just flow out, pull down your legs. It depends what you do, whether you wear a pad or whether you free bleed. Obviously, we live in a society now where it's not so comfortable to just free bleed. If you're at home and it's summer and you can be in the garden, wonderful, or you can lay a towel down. But for most of us, we have to go to work, and there is a huge stigma around periods and seeing blood, which we definitely need to change because it's the most sacred thing because it creates life, and there is nothing dirty or shameful about a bleed. It's really a magical experience. And actually, once you start healing, you can have so many downloads. It can be a really awakening time. And I never thought this, coming from someone who, I also hated my period. I had the PCOS spectrum. I didn't have endometriosis or heavy bleeds. I had very light, stagnant and brown bleeds that were uncomfortable. Never had extreme pain, but I had a lot of cramping and discomfort and backache. And my period was just like 1 to 2 days, and yeah, mostly brown when I had PCOS. So we're aiming for getting it out, okay? I hope this makes sense so far. Now, if you're on the endometriosis spectrum, again, it's like you can't put people in boxes, because the women I work with, some women who have endometriosis have hemorrhaging 2-week bleeds, big clots. It's a lot. And then other women I work with who have endo don't really have any problems with their period. They have the pain, but they don't have a lot of heavy menstrual bleeding. Again, that depends on where the adhesions are, how much estrogen has built up in their system. Again, it's usually estrogen that's aggravating the condition, not the cause, but aggravating. So that will play a role in how much blood. So if you do then have hemorrhaging, a couple of week long, more than 7 days, okay? So anything more than 7 days is considered abnormal. But again, it's like, how much blood is really what we're looking at. But yeah, 2 weeks is a long time. Some of the clients I work with are 3-week bleeds. They're just not getting a break. By the time they finish their period, they're already starting their next cycle, which is exhausting, and you just can't live like that. So having those heavy clotted periods as well, the body again is going to usually experience more pain, because it's going to end up contracting the uterus, right? The womb, because it wants to get the blood out. So 2 levels of spectrum here. Very little blood and a lot of blood are both going to cause pain. Okay. And what we're trying to do is meet in the middle, where we have roughly a 3 to 5 day bleed with bright red blood, a little bit of brown towards the end. As it oxidizes and slows down, it will just basically oxidize, means as the red blood comes out of your vagina and hits oxygen, as it slows down, it will then be more brown in your underwear. If you don't really know the color, then just wear some lighter colored pants for a little while, or some underwear. Most period pants. I think most women are wearing period pants these days. If you can, great, get yourself some period pants. But when you're at the beginning of healing and you want to actually figure out what's going on with your period blood, just get some white pants, and just cheap white pants, just so you can see the color and you can throw them away, okay? I know that's not exactly very environmentally friendly, but you can also wash them, can't you? Ignore what I just said, don't throw them away. You can also use things like a moon cup, right? But I personally am not for any kind of plugging. I'm just not for it. And I know that, okay, yes, you might want to go swimming, or you might want to go to work, and you want to, you can't happily free bleed. I do understand that. But what you do need to know is any form of plugging, whether it's a tampon or a cup, you are going to create more contractions, because the body is highly intelligent. It will know that the blood is not leaving the body, and it does increase pain and cramps. So I personally feel the best option for you is to have a period pants. We have moved into an era where we've actually got so many options on the market. So I can actually put in the link below this, my favorite ones. I'll also do a Substack on it and put all the links to the ones that I use. No sponsorship, just exactly what I love and what I've tried and tested. For a long time, I just used pads too, but there's something really nice about just putting on the pants, wearing them, and then you can throw them in the washing machine. They can be a little bit of an upfront cost, but over time you end up saving money, because you've just bought them once and that's it, and they last for a very long time. I've had mine for more than 10 years, I think now. So yeah. Okay. So let's go through exactly what a normal period is. So a normal period would occur just once a month within that lunar cycle. A lot of people say that we're not connected to the moon, and they think it's all waffle and woo-woo. I personally completely disagree. Majority of us would have our periods syncing with the moon, but we live in the modern day and there's synthetic light sources everywhere. It's pretty hard. For some people they can. Sometimes mine lines up with the moon, which is wonderful. And it often happens when I've spent more time in nature or outside. I mean, in my home, I don't really have any kind of LEDs now, mostly incandescent bulbs, because I just don't want anything to interfere. The only thing I have is my laptop and phone, which I try to wear my blue light blockers at night. It does really make a huge difference to your hormones. So we're looking for a period that arrives just once a month, and we want it to be about roughly the same days each cycle. So look, in a textbook it says 28 days, but actually in terms of Ayurveda, if we're looking at the Indian medicine system that I work with, there are 3 types of people. I mean, there's actually an infinite number of people because we're made up of all the elements. But the main 3 types, I won't go too much into all the different types, but we've got Vata, Pitta, and Kapha. You might not be familiar with Ayurveda, but we're not all the same, okay? I think it's very clear by now that we all understand that not one diet works for us all, and we all have different shaped bodies. Some people are naturally very slender who struggle to actually gain weight. There are other women who easily put on weight and just stay curvaceous, and that's just their body. Okay, no amount of dieting will change it, and that's okay because it's actually beautiful that we're not all the same, but we've got different personalities, different natures, and different bodies. So in terms of your cycle, Vata people, women, tend to have a shorter cycle. That's just their normal, and it tends to be about 26 to 28 days, okay? That is variable for them. Everything about Vata people are generally irregular, so their cycle can be a little bit irregular, but we are aiming for, say, 26 days on average each cycle for them. It might vary a little bit depending on what's going on in their life right now. And then for a Pitta person, they are pretty regular like clockwork, and they do tend to have a period that's about 28 to 30 days for most of their life. Like, that's just who they are. Everything about them is quite regular, efficient. They're also the women that don't tend to lose much weight, but they also don't put on much weight. And they can also, if they do gain weight, they can lose it quite easily, and they can also put on weight quite easily. So it's quite easy for them to sort of fluctuate a little bit. And then Kapha types, they have the longer cycles, up to 35 days usually. And they're the ones that have a bit more of a curvaceous body. They just do. Their body holds a bit more fat. It's great. They're more resilient people, and there's nothing wrong with that. And yeah, they tend to have slightly longer periods. So that's a little bit about the actual cycle, the full cycle. The actual period itself, that's like, not even a quarter of your cycle, really, it should be free of pain. Having any pain in your cycle is abnormal. So I will say that now. I know that if you go to a GP or doctor, they're like, oh yes, it's quite normal to have period pain. It is absolutely not normal. It's not normal at all, just to say that now. So if you're experiencing any pain during your bleed, then something is not okay, and we need to work on that. And I mean, they say free of bloating in Ayurveda, but essentially you're going to have some because your womb is it's not filling up with blood, but you've got your uterine lining is ready to shed. So it does actually almost double in size, your womb, during this time. So having a little bit of extra, it's not bloating as in feeling like you've got air in there and it's particularly uncomfortable. It's not that kind of bloating, but to have a slightly extended belly, like you are a woman, you do have a womb, and it does double in size when you're about to menstruate. That's normal, okay? We don't need to keep aiming to have flat stomachs. Like, it's okay. So I'll say free of bloating, kind of like wind, gas, feeling particularly like you've gone up many dress sizes and you're feeling really uncomfortable, that kind of bloating, that's usually connected with endometriosis and a lot of inflammation. A little bit of your lower abdomen changing, that's pretty normal. I would say that's okay, Just make sure you're not going to be wearing any tight jeans or anything at that time. I don't think I've worn that tight jeans or anything for many years. They've always got elastic, and just have your belly out. So what? So another thing is looking at your mood, which really we can talk about PMS probably in another episode. But really, we say your cycle should be free of any kind of irritability and mood swings. Now, I do think that there is a level of irritability that's quite normal just before your period, because as women, we crave space when we're about to bleed. That's an instinct, that's a natural instinct where we want to be left alone and we want space to be able to just be. And it's in our luteal phase where we want to just potter around and do our own thing and not be bothered. And it's where we just can be really direct and we're very honest, and we just haven't got the time to sugarcoat anything anymore, and we call it the no bullshit zone. So I think that's quite normal. And if you don't get the space you need, yeah, of course you're going to feel irritable. But having like severe mood swings, really low mood, depression, that is not normal, and that is a sign of low progesterone. So your period shouldn't really have much of a scent or an odor to it. Yes, of course, there's a kind of normal fleshy kind of smell of blood. That's very normal. But if it's really, really strong, then that would be a sign of probably excess Pitta, dosha, having a lot of heat in your system. Yes. Now, the amount of blood is an interesting one. In modern medicine, they say about 60 mils, right? Which is, it's quite hard to imagine that. But actually, a shot glass is about 60 mils, I would say. It's kind of a little bit bigger than like a moon cup, menstrual cup. But again, I would say this depends on your dosha and the size of your body. We've all got different size wombs. I wouldn't say it's very hard to put women in boxes. What I like about the Ayurvedic system is they call it Angelis. So it's a measurement that's very personalized and specific to your body. So what they do is you put both your hands together into like a cup shape, and that essentially is, if you're thinking like you're going to go get some food, I always think of like Oliver the Twist. Oliver Twist, where you're like, please sir, I'll have some more. And you put your hands together and you go, and basically that would be 4 of those, not completely full and spilling over the edges, but to cup your hands in grabbing 4, what they call it 4 Angelis, would be the amount that's perfectly suited for your body. So losing 4 Angelis, four hands of cups together, if that makes sense. It's a bit of a hard way to explain, not visually. Again, maybe I can do that on a Substack and put a photo of my hands and show you. So, but in kind of, if you're looking at the more scientific thing, we'd say 60 mils is considered normal. Anything above 80 is way too much, and 30 mils is just not enough. So again, to be more visual. Sorry, I can't get my words out today. I'm actually on my period, so maybe that's why. It's quite hard to articulate to yourself when you're bleeding, because all your energy has gone to your womb, hasn't it? So I really wanted to do this podcast today while I was actually bleeding. I thought that was something quite pivotal to have and to share. So 80 mils is too much. Now, how do you look at that? So, for example, any form of, if you're wearing a pad and you leak through your pad and your clothes that day, that's already a sign that your period's heavy. Okay, you shouldn't be leaking through like a quite a thick pad and clothing. If you're doing that, we already know that your bleed is too heavy. It's likely that you've got estrogen dominance. And how do I know that? Because estrogen's role in the body is to thicken the lining. So the thicker the lining of your womb, the more blood that's going to leave. So it's a very simple example. A lot of women will then have tests and they might come back with like lower estrogen. But what's really important to look out for, especially if you're going to see your doctor and get blood tests and look at hormones, is what the most important bit is to know your ratio between estrogen and progesterone. That's the most important, because what you want is, your estrogen and progesterone to be within range, and you don't want progesterone to be significantly lower, because it's not necessarily like the amount of estrogen in the body, it's the ratio between progesterone. So that's something you can ask them and say, what's the ratio? They'll be really quite surprised that you asked them that. They'll be like, oh right, she's quite clued up, she knows what she's talking about. Because when you have low progesterone, that then it's like a buffer. I see progesterone as like estrogen's best friend. She's like this buffer that keeps her in check. I think of estrogen as like this wild, kind of more party girl who's quite youthful and like a seductress, right? And progesterone's this kind of grounded earth mama that comes in and just like keeps her in check. So if you haven't got enough progesterone, estrogen is going to just be wild, and it causes quite erratic, heavy bleeding. So we want that as a buffer. I hope that makes sense. Now, also, if you're not bleeding enough and you've got, like 1 to 2 day periods where it's not full flow, it's kind of a bit stagnant and a bit brown, and it kind of takes a while to really get going. This is a period that I used to have. And, I have to say, I'm going to say it, and you might not like this, but if you are vegan, it's quite common to have light periods. It's quite hard to get all of your nutrients met being vegan. Vegetarian, yeah, you can definitely do it. But vegan, I'm sorry, it's not something that I generally like promote, because I was vegan for 8 years of my life as well. It's extremely depleting, and you wouldn't survive in the wild whatsoever. And it's just not natural. So I will say that. And I've worked with many vegans, and even if you can just become vegetarian or just have a little bit more fat and protein. Yes, I know you can get protein being a vegan, but it's hard to get your complete proteins and all your amino acids. And I just always see when I'm working with clients who are vegan, they're very depleted. They don't have enough blood. They look quite pale. You can see it in their eyes. I can see it in their system by looking at them when I do an Ayurvedic reading. And they then start healing and getting a lot better with just a little bit more animal protein. So I will say that. And that's me just coming straight from a biological standpoint. We're not talking about any politics or environment. I'm talking only purely about health. Okay, so I said my piece there. And then in terms of flow, you don't really want spotting, and again, that kind of shows a bit of stagnation or not enough progesterone in the system. But when your period arrives, we want it to arrive, like without warning, right? I had a client last year, and she said to me, she was like in a presentation, and she was like, Emma, my period just arrived. I had no warning. I didn't have any PMS. I didn't know it was coming. And obviously for her, that was really unusual. And she was like, it was a little bit embarrassing because I just had blood. I was wearing white. I had no, wasn't prepared. But she was like, it was such a good signal of how much my healing has, come about. And I feel, because before I had so much PMS, I had cramping leading up to my bleed. And she was like, is this how it is? Your period just like shows up and you didn't even know and you felt really good. And I'm like, yeah. So yeah, it doesn't quite work sometimes in our modern world, like if you're in a presentation. But, for me, how I do it is that I'll look at my calendar, and even if I'm feeling good, like I know, like there's that moment of feeling like I'm feeling a bit irritable. I want my space. I definitely am eating a lot more, which is very normal in your luteal phase. Lean into it. You need more food in your luteal phase. Your metabolism is really fast. Your cortisol is really high. So eat more. This is your permission slip. And you'll get that feeling of I need to eat more. I need to sleep more. I want to be distant from people. These are all signs your period is on its way. And then just before your period starts, usually the day or the day before, you'll get that little lift and you'll go, oh, I'm feeling quite good today. And that is where your progesterone has dropped. You get that kind of no man's land, I call it, of your hormones are fairly neutral at this point. And then the bleed arrives. So you can kind of prepare, like I tend to just wear some period pants the day I think it's coming. And it usually does come that day or the next. And it's pretty spot on now. And yeah, my period is completely free of pain and it's great. And I don't tell you this to boast or make you feel awful, but just to show that you can have a wonderful period. So I used to have PCOS in the past. I do believe I fully reversed it, whether I don't really care whether ever anyone believes me or not, whether the doctors, whatever, because I've checked my hormone levels. I have absolutely amazing periods. I have no signs of acne or have hair loss anymore. Actually got beautiful hair growth on my hair. I never really had any hirsutism actually. But yeah, and my period actually arrived on Wednesday. I knew it was coming. I did feel a bit irritable this month because I just knew that I really needed more space than I had. It's been quite a full-on month with working and life, and that also plays a role in how our period is, our lifestyle. So that's something to always consider. What are you doing in the lead up to your period? You're going to have higher levels of cortisol leading up to your period, so don't do anything stressful. And of course, like, we can't control life. Like, sometimes stressful things happen, but what can you do to support yourself in that time? So I always make sure my workload is less during that. Well, luteal phase is almost 2 weeks. So that in that time, I have a less workload as much as I can. And I don't have as many social plans. I don't really feel like chatting to people too much at that time. And I just make sure I've got plenty of food in the house. Even around like ovulation, I might make some nice cookies, so that they're ready. I'll also make some like cherry honey gummies. So I've got some little sweet snacks. And it's just, yeah, all about prepping for that time. So my period arrived on Wednesday and yeah, straight away, bright red blood, easy. I actually drove all the way to London to pick up a new car, was sat in the car for 3 hours, didn't leak at all, had my period pants on, was singing to some like 90s music, had a great time, came back, absolutely zero pain. Haven't leaked once, and we're now Saturday. My period is finished really in the night. There's like little bits now ending, but it came on full flow. It was bright red, zero pain, and I carried on my life. Like, I worked, I drove to London, I drove all the way back, got stuck in traffic for hours in the heat. It was really quite a lot, but actually wasn't really a problem. Like, I can imagine someone else who's having a really heavy period, that would just be absolute carnage. There's no way you would have been able to do that. So I know from someone that did have I never used to have like sharp pain, I will say that, but I had really awful back pain. It was like deep ache that I could never reach. And I know that comes from the stagnation. There was a lot of brown blood. My periods were only a couple of days. And it just, yeah, along with all of the other PCOS symptoms of acne all over my back and chest, jawline, that's classic signs of PCOS, cystic acne on my back that was so painful to kind of lean on chairs. I hated it. I had a lot of receding hairline and hair fall as well. Just, yeah, very low mood, which often comes with that, and depression. Irregular cycles as well, very irregular. They would just sort of show up, my periods, whenever. I had no idea when they were coming. They stopped for like 8 months as well. So yeah, I've been there. I know how it feels to have a very, dysregulated period. And I know that you can heal it, which is what we're all about here at Arta. If you want to learn more, we have a whole course which teaches you from start to finish how to heal naturally. We've got amazing workshops, and there's one actually called Symptoms as Messages, which will explain exactly what your symptoms are and then what they mean, because really being informed is the most powerful thing. It explains everything about what a painful period is, what it means, why you get it, how to heal it, absent periods. We talk about light periods, heavy periods. We talk about PCOS, fibroids, cysts, endometriosis, adenomyosis. We also give you signs of estrogen dominance and signs of progesterone deficiency and testosterone dominance and everything that you need to look out for, because really I'm teaching you how to read your body. What do those symptoms mean? Because in the past, myself included, we just ignore them. Oh, you've got acne, you go get a cream, don't you? Or you take the pill. Or you go and have surgery, or all the things that we're just really plastering all the time. And actually what we're teaching is to not plaster, to listen and go, okay, I'm going to listen to my body. What's going on? Why have I started getting acne along my jawline? And actually I'm going to teach you that's to do with insulin and blood sugar and cortisol. And so having the information is what's going to help heal you, right? You can't just heal by taking a few supplements or even a whole cupboard full of supplements and expect to heal, because there could be something you're doing every single day that's not to blame you, but you just haven't been educated. We're not taught anything about health in school. We're not taught anything about nutrition. And it could be something as simple as the way that you're eating or the way that you're moving through the day that is not maybe causing but definitely aggravating your symptoms. I was someone who was always living on quite processed foods. I probably ate a lot of bananas, and as a high Pitta person, bananas are very aggravating. I also had way too much coffee and way too much dairy. And I'm not against dairy, but for someone who's Pitta, they don't do well with cheese. They're absolutely fine with raw milk, but there's just understanding how your body interplays with your environment and the nutrition. And it's not just about food, it's about how you move. Like, I used to rush through the day a lot more, very fiery, very impatient, and I still have that same nature, but when I can see myself speeding up, I have to go, okay, how am I going to slow down today? Because that is going to contribute to my symptoms just as much as having, something processed. And what I'm teaching is it's not about being perfect. We're not looking at being restrictive and cutting everything out and never having sugar and gluten and all of that, because I don't believe in that. And I have plenty of pastries nowadays. And I love sugar as well. I don't have a lot, but it's about the type. It's about the quality. It's about fresh food. I mean, there's a whole lot to talk about, but I won't fit it into this episode. But I really hope today that gave you a little bit of an overview of what a normal period could be for you. And just know that healing is possible, and it doesn't necessarily require doing many different things. Like, I see on Instagram, women are like, I'm so done with anti-inflammatory diets, daily Pilates, 10 different supplements, cutting this out, cutting that out, and that's really exhausting. And with Ayurveda, a lot of the time it's what can we add in, but subtly and simply. And it's more about like practices as well. I'm not an advocate for HIIT training or doing exercise like that. I mean, we always look at the blue zones. That's a whole other thing to talk about. But really, walking is perfect exercise for women, especially up a hill. We don't need to be doing intense workouts. And actually, maybe that's really causing a lot of flare-ups if you've got endo. Less is more. Remember that. And just some simple changes can really make a big difference in your health. And it's just knowing what those changes are, but we don't have to go to the extreme and be taking like 30 different supplements. You really don't. Okay, have a beautiful day, and thank you so much for listening. I will see you in the next episode.